Big LEZ'S League, an all rugby league experience. Hello, welcome back to Big LEZ'S League, an all rugby league experience. I'm your host, Big Les. Welcome to another episode of the Drawing Board, round 26, the Drawing Board as well. If you haven't already, make sure to go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube, become a part of the Big LEZ'S League community. We are growing very, very quickly. We have been over the past few weeks, so make sure you become a part of it. Subscribe to the Big LEZ'S League community. Get amongst it. We've got some great content coming out. We're going to start some interviews during the off season as well. So make sure if you have any suggestions as to who you'd like to see as well get interviewed, make sure to leave it in the comment section below. We'll try our best to get everyone, who you guys request, players, coaches, stuff like that. We'll definitely be able to get in touch with a few of those guys and get some quality interviews for you. But this is the Drawing Board, our SuperCoach and NRL Fantasy show. We're going to get into it, our high achievers for the week. We'll go through our overall scores, which was pretty decent this week for round 25, and then going through what changes we're going to make for round 26. Only 2 weeks to go. Very, very excited to see the grand finale here for both SuperCoach and NRL Fantasy this season. We will do a Fantasy and NRL and SuperCoach review at the back end of the regular season. So over the next 2 weeks as part of, I guess, a closing chapter of this show, obviously for this year. It'll continue when SuperCoach and NRL Fantasy start to kick off again next year. Obviously, when we're starting to build our sides, it will continue again, but it is the last 2 to 3 weeks of the show. But let's get into it though. Our changes for round 26 will come up in a second. We're going to talk about our high achievers first, though. Our first one for SuperCoach was Tom Trbojevic, the highest score of 158. Huge week for Tom Trbojevic. He got it 2 or 3 weeks ago. And I think Max Plath was the fantasy guy 2 or 3 weeks ago as well. But he's here again, Tommy Turbo, 158 points. Big week for him. Played himself and Tedesco, which played beautifully for me. If I had my time again, I would have started Tom Trbojevic and captained him. But look, I got a pretty terrific score, so I'm not complaining too much at all. In terms of fantasy, our highest achiever was Jahrome Hughes, 87 points. We got a nice captaincy score of 170 something or other. 174, I think it was at the end of it, but beautiful score there from Jahrome Hughes. He had a big week. He was one of the Melbourne Storm's best players. He'll be the Dalian Player of the Year, in my opinion, as well as the halfback of the year. I don't think there's too much pushback on that from any other people that I've spoken to. He's been outstanding this season and probably the informed player in the competition at the moment. Now, in terms of our total scores for SuperCoach, 1,502. It is our highest ever score across both apps. Really, really happy about it too. Beautiful week, massive score. Never been more excited to make a post about SuperCoach than I was today, chopping this up, and got a nice little surprise seeing that score there. Had to reload the page and see if it was G'ing me up, but yeah, look, perfect score. Well, we've been building up to this for the past few weeks, just getting trades in, building up to this score. We finally got a good one. I imagine we'll get close to this again going into this week with a few changes here and there that we've made. Obviously, only one trade to go next week for both apps, so you get a bit of a grasp as to how many trades, if you've been watching on for the past few weeks, I have left and how many trades I've used going into this week. But Tom Trbojevic, though, no shot at trading him. Beautiful score, and overall for SuperCoach doing very well. I think it was the 6th or 7th highest for the week too for the app. So look, very, very happy with that score. As for NRL Fantasy, 912. Again, solid effort from myself there. Lots to learn from this year for fantasy. And as we've gotten better at the latter part of the season, but I think that looking back on the entire year, we'll talk about this more when we do the review of the fantasy year and the SuperCoach year for myself. I think a big solid takeaway was the management of trades. I have been very known to go a bit gung-ho when it comes to trades, even last year having to not talk about fantasy anymore at one stage in the later part of the year because I'd run out of trades. There was nothing to talk about and our team was getting flogged. So I started diverted to SuperCoach. But look, beautiful, beautiful score here. And as I said, it's just improving over the years. I mean, the whole idea around the show is just the battler going through and trying his best for SuperCoach and NRL Fantasy. Basically, myself being one of you guys, obviously that watch all of the other SuperCoach and NRL Fantasy related content, trying to get better at their game. I'm just making a show about it. And, the improvement that we've had from the start of the year to now for both of these apps to get to this stage, we've got two really nice scores here. As I said, really solid effort this week, and it's off the back of the trade work and obviously managing those trades very, very well to the point where we've got 2 weeks to go. We've got 1 trade left for both apps, and we might not even use a trade next week. That's how good we're going. But let's have a look at the trades going into this week, though. A bit to talk about here, SuperCoach wise. We traded in DCE last week. We're going to trade him out. Just didn't go the way I thought it would. It was in the 40s. Thought he was going to get higher in that matchup. It was only going to be a 1-week plan anyway. I've gone straight to Sam Walker. Sam Walker's draw over the next few weeks is just absolutely delicious, to the point where he can have 2 really big games going into the final series and build in a bit of momentum in terms of form, which would not so good for SuperCoach fans, more so the form for those 2 rounds. But in regards to finals form, it doesn't really matter too much for us. His draw is the Canberra Raiders, which is going to be a tough game, but it is also a game they can win by a 13-plus margin. They go from that straight into the Rabbitohs, which I think is a very winnable game with where the Rabbitohs are at this season as well. It's a very beautiful draw, and that just enticed me to go the way of Sam Walker. I was very, very close to going Jake Clifford, but he's got Melbourne in that draw, and I just don't think they're going to be able to beat Melbourne. So I avoided Clifford. My, idea around the Clifford trade was I was going to go for Clifford, which is just so far, left of where everyone else would be going this round. And then obviously bringing in Joseph Tarpanay into the front row for Terrell May. Terrell May, I was very close to trading him. It was just that I couldn't get the cash if I was to trade in Sam Walker to get in someone else that was good and that was going to get me a better score than what Terrell May has been throwing up, and obviously got 24 over the week due to lack of minutes. So I'm going to keep him this week, but he won't be playing this week. He'll be on my bench. I brought in Liam Henry into the starting side. We'll wait and just see what the lineups tend to look like. Obviously, today when the podcast comes out, I'll have a little bit of look at the team list and make that decision as to if I do want to make any changes. But how it is every week is the post that I put up on Instagram on the Tuesday, which is going to be the afternoon when this podcast comes out, due to a lot of other content that we're throwing up in regards to the Dally M Awards. It usually stays like that. It is very rare that any late mail comes out, and any late mail that does come out, you guys will be notified about that on the Instagram. So as I said, if you don't follow that yet, the link for the Instagram will be in the description below. Get amongst it. Become a part of the Big LEZ'S League community. Our second trade for SuperCoach is a Casey McLean, who I would say worked for me in the time that I traded him in. I think I traded him in 4 weeks ago. He's worked for me in that stage. In that 4 weeks, he's had 2 decent scores, slowly going down a little bit. Had to trade him out due to salary cap pressure. Obviously, he was dropping in price a little bit with some average scores. Got 21, I believe, on the weekend. I've traded him out. I brought in Xavier Savage. I've got Sam Stonestreet in my side as well. Pending team list, it'll either be Sam Stonestreet or Xavier Savage starting, which I've written on the post. So yeah, there's no confusion there as to where I'm going this week. As for NRL Fantasy, I have traded out Josh Curran. Just the injury cloud. I'd regardless of what the team lists are, having the opportunity to trade in who I've traded in for Josh Curran, and I'll leave that as a bit of a surprise. I'll go through the rest of the guys I've traded out. I had to swipe that opportunity regardless of if Curran is going to be named. So Curran's out. Dom Young's out. Casey McLean is out as well for fantasy. And a guy that I've been looking to trade for ages, but has actually come in handy for me over the past few weeks in that hooking sort of role, is Carl Lawton. Carl Lawton is also out. In terms of the guys I've traded in, so for Curran, I've traded in Dave Fafita, which is huge. Just had enough cap space to get in with the rest of the guys that I brought in. And then I've just brought in a bunch of other goers that I know is going to be starting, or, I have a good feeling that will be starting for the rest of the regular season. Maybe not the last one, and I've got outside backs that can cover those positions. But the other 2 are, other than Dave Fafita, I know are going to be starting. Dom Young out, Fletcher Sharp in. Cheaper there, obviously. made a bit of room for me to trade in Dave Fafita. For Casey McLean, I've traded in Victor Radley. Casey McLean went to the bench. Kiraz is starting on the wing now. Kale Little is starting in the centers. So that's how I moved things around to trade in Victor Radley there. But he's in. I just feel like last 2 weeks, heading into finals, playing on that edge, I feel like he's going to rack up a few points. I can just feel it. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I've got enough forwards and guys on my bench who are going to be playing that I can move in there for those final weeks, or I can just trade him out with my last trade last week if it really gets to that point. And then Sam Stonestreet, I've traded him in for fantasy as well. So he's in both teams now, fantasy and SuperCoach. He's in. I like this trade a lot, particularly if he is going to be playing and if they are going to rest Ronaldo and Sione Katoa going into finals. I know that Katoa has been battling a few injuries here and there throughout the year. So if they do rest those guys over the next 2 weeks, I could definitely see him getting some game time. I've traded him in. If it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, I've got enough guys to cover those wing and center positions anyway, so I don't need to stress about that too much. But those are my trades for fantasy for round 26. In terms of what my teams are going to be looking like, a little bit more scribble on this page than what you're generally used to. But Tedesco at fullback and captain, Sam Stonestreet and Xavier Savage on the wing. As I said, pending team lists, it will be Sam Stonestreet or Xavier Savage. I've got Kiraz on the other wing there. I have got Manu and Kale Ito in the centers. Matt Burton, vice captain, there at 6 with Jerome Hughes at 7. I've got Adam Fanua-Blake and Jack DeBellin in the front row. I have got Jack DeBellin isn't in the front row. I've got to make a change there. It is Liam Henry in the front row. I will make a change there and reschedule that post. But Liam Henry, he's there in the front row with Harry Grant. Eli Katoa and Angus Crichton, they're in the back row. Josh Curran at 13. The reason Jack DeBellin's name was there was just the process, the thought process there, just figuring out who I was going to trade. I think I ended up trading Terrell May out at a stage and put that onto the post, and then changed my mind when I came back to my laptop and didn't actually update the post. So that's hence why I said Jack DeBellin. But I was going to trade him back in. That would have been the biggest turncoat / change of mind that I would have probably ever done. Obviously traded him out 2 weeks ago now, or last week actually. I traded him out because he was playing back row, getting average points, but I just saw the break even and just where the points were going to be over the next 2 weeks. His draw, considered bringing him back in, but changed my mind. Bench, Tom Trbojevic, Sam Walker. I've got Jaden Campbell and Tallis Duncan. Now, a big thing to remember here with the SuperCoach, awaiting team lists. If Curran is out, Duncan to lock, Savage and Stonestreet to the bench. That's my thought process there. There is word that Curran will still be out and will be out for another week, but we are going to wait for team lists there. Also, in regards to Jerome Hughes and Harry Grant, I've left a little disclaimer on the last page of the post, added a page to the post. There are rumors going around that Jerome Hughes and Harry Grant will be rested for round 26 and potentially round 27. If that is the case, we could undo some trades, or worst case scenario, bringing in Carl Lawton to 9 for SuperCoach and Sam Walker into the 7, which isn't too bad for fantasy. Jaden Campbell would go into the starting halves with Sam Hughes or Alec McDonald joining the bench. That is pending team list and seeing if those guys are rested. That is going to be the biggest letdown of the year if we do end up seeing Jerome Hughes and Harry Grant rested. I've got both of them in my side. They were huge contributors to my scores last week as well. So if both of those guys are out, I'm in a bit of sticky water there in regards to how my team is going to look. Most likely, as soon as I get the mail, I'm going to make the move, reverse some trades, bring the guys that I traded out back in, which is DCE and Casey McLean, and just reassess. I would probably then make the move for Jerome Hughes to come out and Sam Walker to go in there. DCE would remain in my side. He hasn't got the best draw, but I'd just have to make do. And then I'd probably make another move there, Harry Grant, for another hooker. Most likely a Reed Marnie, depending on averages, or a Reece Robson. Again, it's all depending on averages there. But we'll cross that bridge if we get to it. It's a big if, but the rumors are pretty strong that those two will be rested. So, as I said, pending team lists, those are some changes you could see. As for fantasy, we have Kale Weeks at fullback. We have Jacob Kiraz and Fletcher Sharp on the wings, Jack White and Kale Idor in the centres, Matt Burton, vice captain at 6, with Jerome Hughes at 7, captain. I have got Paddy Carrigan and Isaiah Yeo front row, Reid Marnie 9, Howarth and Olakawatu there in the back row with Max Psycho Plath there at 13. I've got Dave Fafita, Jaden Campbell, Sam Stone Street, and Victor Radley on the bench. Pretty nice bench there for me. Pretty good looking side. Goal for me is 1,000. It's a world where I probably don't get it this week, but I want to get it by the end of the year. We got very close this week. So let's see how we can go going into this weekend. As I said, keep in mind for all fantasy and SuperCoach players, Jerome Hughes, Harry Grant, very strong rumours that those two could be rested. If it affects you as well, Nick Meaney is also in that discussion. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there. But there you go, guys. That is the drawing board for round 26. Make sure to subscribe and become a part of the big LEZ'S League community. Also, follow the Instagram, the TikTok. We have got a number of social platforms. So make sure you get stuck into those, and we'll see you guys in the next one.